was planning to give you, all new, exciting, sparkly version of Chinese historical phonology, but it wasn't to be. So maybe next year. So instead, let me say that I have twice taught in the Leiden Summer School Chinese historical phonology, and both of those are online, both on YouTube and at Dilly. And I don't know, some things I did well, some things I did poorly, right? So how is this one different? Okay, so it's shorter, it's only 5. Yeah, so I'll just explain what we're gonna do is we're gonna divide me and Jinqi. We're not quite sure what to do, then we agreed this was the easiest. So the first week is me, just historical phonology, and then the second week is her, and she will focus on reading excavated texts. Now, in terms of historical phonology, then we won't, how would I say, if I'm a little bit worried because my experience teaching it the last 2 times was that I went too fast and it was too difficult and too much information. So then I decided, especially because this one is short, that I will make it not so advanced. But then I look around and I see a lot of you have already studied Chinese historical phonology, so I'm a little worried that you'll be annoyed with this decision. But in any case, also just to explain the kind of genesis of what the materials I'm using, I taught this class in Leiden twice, and then Yunfan Lai taught Chinese historical phonology to our MA Chinese studies here. And then Jinqi taught it the year after him. So it was like my slides, then Yunfan changed them, and then Jinqi changed them, and now I've changed them again. And so hopefully this is, this is good. It's like a fine cheese that sort of ripens with age, right? But there may be some, and I've tried, like, let's say, there may be some heterogeneity to it, or some places where I refer to, things that no longer conform with reality in terms of, deadlines for assignments and things like that. So just please forgive these kind of potential hiccups, and also for those of you who know most of it already, you can just feel like, I don't know, you can just take a longer lunch tomorrow or concentrate on the Tonga class or something. So then I'm going to, because I don't see very well, I'm going to actually look at this one with you guys and then move ahead here. Okay, so so I actually especially like the way Yunfan decided to begin the class. So so we're going to sort of think about what is Chinese and and what Chinese you already know. So let me try, because it's a bit too large a room to go around to everyone. But who here, your mother tongue is Putonghua? Okay. Who here knows some kind of Chinese other than Putonghua? Okay. Okay. Who is a native speaker of a form of Chinese other than Putonghua? All right. Then let's take from there. You just tell me what.
So I speak Cantonese natively.
You speak Cantonese. And I think he says, no, so how do you say Ni Chi Fan Lama in Cantonese? Okay, and then let's see, keep your hands up if you are a native speaker of something other than Putonghua. So let's move, yeah, okay, you were there.
So also the sentence.
Well, so first of all, if you're from Taiwan, you have to say,
oh yeah.
So I speak Hokkien.
Yeah, actually it's Hokkien because I'm not part of the I'm not from the Austronesian part.
Okay. But also there are some people who speak Hakka in Taiwan.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah.
But somehow I'm Hokkien.
Okay. So how do you say this in Hokkien? Oh, that's how do you say fun then? Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So then let's see the rest of you who had your hands up. Cantonese and Hokkien are already taken. So anyone who speaks any other Sinitic language. Oh, there, yeah.
I speak Northern.
You speak Northern Wu.
Yeah.
Oh, so how do you say? Can you say it again? Yeah, very. Yeah. Anyhow, so you can tell that. I don't know. You see, most of you already know basically what I'm getting at. But some people, you know, are quite actually like last year when I started the MA, I said something like, "Who here speaks languages other than Mandarin Chinese?" And then people say, "Oh, I know some French, I know some German." So they just didn't get the point. Okay, so right. So how many languages are there in China? Anyone have a guess? Come on. 300. Yeah, that's basically right. Yeah. So that's basically twice as many as in the whole of the EU. Yeah. So I think that's something that we should all be very proud of as if you're Chinese. Yeah. Yeah, and then and then we call them the Sinitic languages Fangyan, which then usually gets translated as dialect, but it's a little bit imprecise. And who is it? I think Victor Meyer would like to say topolect, but I don't know. Do you use Fangyan when you talk about like I don't know like Bristol English? Do you say like Bristol Fangyan? Fangyan?
That can be said. But we can say Hua.
Yeah. Of course, you just say Bristol Hua.
I think when usually describing the English accent, we use Korean for
Korean.
English accents.
Yeah.
Okay, but but I mean, there are grammatical differences. Like I'll just tell you.
People don't care about those.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wish Yunfan was here because he picked up kind of Irish English very quickly. But I will just tell you all. So I mean maybe the main thing is the merges with the, so you say no, yeah, that's right. The merges with the, so you can say I think. Although and then final T, they have this like slightly affricated final T, so you say like cat, something like that, and then they merge schwa and upside down as so you say like the bus. I'm taking the bus. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We have a real Irishman in the back. Yeah. And then one of the big grammatical difference I've noticed actually is there's this thing where you can like repeat the verb, like you can say like Steve is studying in Paris, he is, or something like that, right? Or something. and then I've noticed that Irish people say someone's name a lot when they're talking to them. You'll say like, "Well, Steve, when you went there, Steve," or something. This sounds very strange to an American, but anyhow. Let's continue. Right. So this is just about kind of Chinese is an extremely vague term, right? We can mean one of 30 different languages spoken today. We can mean the language spoken by the Japanese or written by the Japanese in the Middle Ages, or written on oracle bone inscriptions. It's an extremely unpleasantly vague term. Okay. Yeah, and then we'll look at in its variation we have historical changes and geographic varieties. You can just look at the slides, right? So Chinese from around 1100 BC till today, whereas for something like Latin, we distinguish between French and Latin. Yeah, whereas we don't distinguish between Chinese and Chinese. And then it's there's this like the script system has led to a lot of a sort of symbol of political and cultural unity. Yeah. And actually, I think it's interesting to see that, like, a lot of people make a comparison between, like Latin in the Middle Ages, kind of all of Christendom spoke Latin or wrote Latin, and like East Asia in the Middle Ages, everyone used Chinese, right? But then even the script system now, of course, the Koreans, the Japanese, the PRC, and other Chinese-speaking areas don't necessarily use the same script system, which is just so irrational, right? But it's as part of a kind of nation-building exercise. It's important to build this barrier so that when someone's reading an essay, they know, is this a Korean essay or is this a Chinese essay, right? Okay, and then this is just to show, so this is Bu, and it looks different in different times. So it doesn't, like, how would I say, a character isn't stable in form, nor is it stable in pronunciation. So there are all sorts of different ways of pronouncing that character. Yeah. So it's changing. So that was just about, what is Chinese. So now we take a quick look at the other languages in China. So these are the families. Yeah, I think there are 9. Yeah, so Sino-Tibetan, Kradai, Austro-Asiatic, Austronesian, Hmong-Mien, Turkic, Mongolic, Tungusic, and Indo-European. And these ones are highlighted, I believe, because they're what Yunfan is going to have me give some examples from, right? If I give examples from all 9 language families, we'll be here all day and we won't get to any Chinese historical phenomena. So Sino-Tibetan, largest, we always say this in grant applications too, 2nd largest language family. Who cares? Yeah, I don't know why, but it's traditional, yeah? And it's only because of Mandarin Chinese that it is the 2nd. Okay, so here's a map that some netizen on Wikipedia made of the Sino-Tibetan languages, and then here's a tree. So personally, I'm extremely skeptical of Bayesian phylogenetics, although Yunfan has sort of, I don't know, at least to some extent, joined the bandwagon. But yes, so according to this tree, which is from 2019, the major split is between Sinitic and Tibeto-Burman. I still feel a little unconvinced by this. It just seems like a priori not very likely. But I don't know. So if you ask me, the biggest thing that is now clear is Burmo-Chongic. That was sort of 10 years ago. People didn't believe in Burmo-Chongic. Now they do, and there's kind of not really like one paper where you say, oh, that's where you go to convince yourself of Burmo-Chongic. But there are a couple that come close to it, and then Burmo-Chongic would include Gyarong and Lolo-Burmese and Naish and just like so, probably like a third of the Sino-Tibetan languages at least, yeah. So I think that means that's the part that I would say during my career has become clear. Okay, so then this is really fun, I think, this series of slides. So we have a few words, and then you see, you just, I don't know, just see that they're, well, sort of similar and sort of not similar, yeah? So let's just take a look at them, like, so weave, tak in Tibetan, rak in Burmese, tak in Cross-Chep, which is a kind of Gyarong, and yeah, I'm just weird to see Chinese in IPA, right? But, so true, doesn't look very cognate, yeah. And in fact, even these, well, they're probably cognate, but it's not perfect, right? Okay, so then first we'll mess around with the Chinese, and then we'll mess around with the other ones. So so this is Mandarin, yeah. Oh, and I don't know. Just, I leave you 5 seconds to look at the other examples yourself. Okay. So now we look at Cantonese, and suddenly it's already a lot better, right? So we have tuk, okay. And how about 5? Yeah, okay. When I just meet Chinese people and they say like, oh, what do you do for a living? I'm a linguist. Then I try and talk about the Sino-Tibetan family. Of course, I use five and fish and I, right? And then they say like, well, what do yu and wo and have to do with, you know, Tibetan nga or something. But then if you do it in any other dialect, it's kind of pretty good, yeah. Okay, and then this is Tejo, yeah. So it's maybe, I don't know, it looks about as good, maybe, yeah. I think night is starting to look better, right? Okay, and then this one is Middle Chinese, yeah, in IPA, which is a thing Yunfan likes to do, but I don't so much. So later I will use Baxter's Middle Chinese, because this is actually Baxter's Middle Chinese written with IPA symbols. It's not an attempt at actually a reconstruction of Chinese in, you know, of Middle Chinese. But so now, you know, okay, it starts to like now eat, I think finally looks reasonable, yeah. Okay, and then Old Chinese, and you're like, okay, now they're kind of obviously cognate, right? Now there is a risk, a serious risk of circular reasoning here, where we sort of reconstructed Old Chinese to look as much as possible like Tibetan, and and I do think that this is something that, you know, with all due respect, Zhongzhen Shangfeng has something of a bad case of. But I think actually, like, I don't know, Baxter and Cigar are very like, oh, mustn't ever look at Tibeto-Burman. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but my own feeling is that, like, if you just have a choice, like I could reconstruct it like this, or I could reconstruct it like this, you might as well reconstruct it the way that looks as much like the languages you presume are related. And actually, you know, people do that in Indo-European as well, right? Okay, and then I think we will go, we add Proto-Khrushchev and Proto-Burmese and Proto-Tibetan. Proto-Tibetan and Proto-Burmese are from my book, my 2019 book, and Proto-Khrushchev is provided by Yunfang. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of very interesting work on Gaorong reconstruction recently. And then you see, oh, now they really look, doesn't it look nice? Yeah, they're almost the same. Now, these differences are actually, you know, where the really hard work starts. Yeah, like what is the thing that conditions the lenition of some initials in Burmese, or like why are some of the Chinese, well, just that one, pharyngalized, right? These are the really hard problems. And actually, I'm in Hangzhou in a few weeks. I'll be giving a very short course. It just kind of lists all of these kind of you know, open questions, yeah, in Sino-Tibetan reconstruction. But you know, I don't know. I wouldn't encourage any of you to just leap on those questions, and instead, probably better to do something like you know, Yunfan's doing, where you reconstruct some relatively easy to reconstruct little piece of Sino-Tibetan, and then hopefully everything will, you know, will start to fit together naturally. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now this is just to say, you know, Chinese is very different than other Sino-Tibetan languages. I mean, Sino-Tibetan is exciting in part because of how morphologically diverse it is. We have some very analytical languages and some very what do we call them? Polysynthetic. Yeah. So here we have in Khrushchev, you know, you can say, oh, what, he killed both of you, and there's this, you know, you can read it yourself, yeah. And this is the, you know, the verb, and that's the point. That's the part it's really one a phonological word, and it is clear that that Old Chinese used to have more stuff than we can figure out very easily. And actually, like in his review of my 2019 book, Guillaume Jacques pointed out that I think it's in the word for, I think the word, there's something with the word for father, where like in Chinese you have both a pa and a ba form, yeah. And then I think he was pointing out that this could be maybe explained using some Kiranti, kind of alienable, or inalienable rather, possession prefix. Yeah, so I think things like that are very promising, but like we don't, like we have lots of phonological evidence of morphology in Old Chinese, but knowing exactly what the morphology did is not very easy. Yeah, okay. So, well, this is just sort of showing the same thing. We have this complex system of affixation. So yeah, there's a nice word in Japanese. Yeah, and you can pronounce it for us. Yeah. Okay. And how about this one?
This one is tricky. Cross steps are too notoriously complicated with such.
Yeah, Crosschap is like it's like Japuk is to Crosschap as Old Church Slavonic is to Russian or something like that.
Perhaps.
Sort of they just got rid of all the vowels. Okay, and then here's just to this is sort of what I was talking about. Let's say in the best case, if we just reconstruct Old Chinese, then the morphology becomes clear. Yeah. In my discussion of Baxter and Cigar, I say one of their methods is morphological speculation, and I don't mean that to sound polemical. Yeah, but I think it's like, like in English, right? You see something like drink and drench, and you say, well, I have something like sit and set, so maybe drench means to force something to drink or something like that, right? And in fact, that would be correct, right? But then you still need to think like, well, why is it that it's not drank or something? Why is it? There's a lot going on there phonologically and morphologically, and if you start, just finding synchronic variations and then assuming they're morphological patterns, then anything can be anything, and you end up like James Matisoff. Yeah, but some of this is definitely real, right? And I think there's a kind of dialectical process we have to have as a discipline where we have someone who's quite wild, who says, I think, all of these Chinese words are related and there's this or this prefix. And then we have someone who's quite conservative who says like, actually, those ones are crazy, those ones there's evidence for, and moving back and forth between those two extremes is how we'll actually make progress as a discipline. Because if you really are a sort of pinheaded neo-grammarian like me, you just sort of end up comparing the words for hand in Burmese and Tibetan again and again. You're like, oh, they're both lak. Yeah, so that works. Yeah, but it's only by allowing yourself to do dangerous things that you'll actually learn things, right? So anyhow, so I think this one's really nice, right? So we have stop, so nudge, and then to obstruct, nudge, so some kind of causative sort of thing, and then here a stopper, so maybe an infix. That's Baxter and Cigar, I think that's an infix, and they put it in brackets, yeah, in pointy brackets. And then snur, place where the sun rests, which is the west, yeah, place where the sun stops, and then a bird's nest, which is a place where the bird stops, yeah. So if at least if the phonology regularly correlates with differences in semantics, then you have morphology, right? Although, I mean, good for Yunfang to come up with such convincing examples, right? I think that these are about as good as it gets in Chinese, anyhow. Okay, so now Kradai, and I don't know anything about Kradai, so I'll go through this quickly, but similar where we just look, and maybe the point for this class is it's not Sino-Tibetan, right? You look at these cognates and you say, yeah, these are related to each other, and they're not related to what we were looking at before, yeah. And then here's Turkic. Yeah, and here's some words in Turkic languages. And then I really like this one because Buyang looks Austrian.
Yeah, that's also Pierre's work in.
Yeah, I mean,
Periodized Austronesian.
There is also another one, Hanuk.
yeah, this is, well, you can tell us about this, because I think that this is kind of like the Burmo-Chonic, which is that my impression is that the smart money now says that Kradai and Austronesian are,
Yeah, because also Pierre has proposed this for many years, for maybe decades, and I think now it's gaining the mainstream recognition. So
Yeah,
Periodized is parts of a branch of Austronesian.
but there's not a good, like, I was looking around and he has like 2 papers and like one of them's like a handout from a conference or something, and like, it's not, you know, there's nowhere where there's a paper that says Kradai and Austronesian are related, and here I'm proving it, right?
There are papers
Yeah.
about it. There are papers from like Alexander Smith that talk about it, including ones that published like in the last few years only. And I think it's also in like there are some stuff in Seals as well about it.
In where?
See the journal J Seals.
Oh, JCLs, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I'm keeping, you know, one eye on this, and I defer entirely to, you know, colleagues over there. And then Laurent, of course, makes comparisons between sort of Chinese and those Austronesian, but also now he accepts also the Kradai, so he's also starting to look at Kradai, and I do think that I don't know, it's very promising, but I don't know anything about that. And like a lot of, actually, I would say, historical linguists of of Asian languages are extremely bad at talking in a way that is possible for outsiders to you know, engage with. Even outsiders, like, you know, I'm a Sino-Tibetan linguist. When I read something by Bob Luff, it's totally unintelligible to me. It looks like he's just picking reconstructed forms out of the air. Yeah. And I was talking to some people recently, and apparently it's like everything does go back to Dempwolf. And it's like you basically have to have like ingested Dempwolf and then tweaked it since then. Yeah. But that makes it just very like hard as an outsider to engage with. Anyhow, so this is nice because we have this this language in which is an Iranian language, I guess, in China, called Saripoli.
Yeah.
And these people are considered
Tajiks.
Tajiks. Yeah, their Minzu is Tajik, but their language is Saripoli, and it's beautiful, right? This like Chabur and Gver, and it's they're real Indo-Europeans. Yeah, they're not Tajiks. No, but I mean Tajik is also
Yeah.
But I mean Tajik is just Persian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. Okay, and then here's Korean, and I really feel like I don't know anything about Korean, so I'm not gonna say anything about it. But it's, you know, it's well, it's its own thing. Yeah. Okay, and now writing systems. Yeah, I mean the point here is that I mean all of you being linguists will accept is that you can write any. This is what Tim was saying yesterday too. You know, you can write anything with anything, although to a greater or lesser extent, right? You need like actually like I mean, the secret history of the Mongols is a great example, right? Where you're writing Mongolian in Chinese script, but then like they don't have a difference between L and R, so they use this zhong character to mean read the R like an L, I think, yeah. But yeah, you can put your mind to it then. So now we look at some writing systems. So there's Hanzi, there's Tibetan, Puyuk, and then there's Korean. And Korean, now a bit of an aside, but the Koreans are justly proud of Korean, right? Because it encodes the segmental phonology and the syllable structure at the same time. Whereas like Latin script, you get no information about syllable structure. Yeah. But I will point out that Tibetan also gives both of these, and in fact earlier by you know, I don't know, 500 years or something like that. Yeah. And the main difference between Tibetan and Hangul is that in Hangul, they keep every syllable the same size. Yeah. So
Yeah.
in Tibetan, it goes. But in Hangul, it's always the same size. Yeah. And actually, I think this is the big difference in my experience between Sumerian and you can say Sumerian and Chinese, right? Like in Sumerian, you can pile up phonetics and semantic determiners.
Yeah.
Kind of like Tibetan, where you just sort of like, well, let's stick another semantic, another phonetic. But in Chinese, I think that it's kind of like that in Jiaguwen. But then at some point they're like, no, every syllable must be the same size. So someone popped up there for a minute. Yeah.
That's some,
Maybe we leave Q&A.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah.
let them speak up.
Okay. And then there's E, and there's Uyghur Arabic, yeah. And then here's a nice bilingual sign that has Manchu and Chinese in it from the Forbidden City.
yeah, that's actually just Manchurian pinyin.
Yeah.
Can't you imagine?
But it shows you that you can write Chinese in the Manchu script. Okay, and then these are some suggested readings for the class, yeah. Anyhow, and some more. And that was the end of the first, what would have been the first lesson, and hopefully that will get us, oh no! No, it's right. Wait, yeah, that's exactly half an hour, right? Yeah, okay. So I figured that I could fit 2 in 1, yeah, because you're all more advanced than our students. So now we go back to periodization of Chinese. So this is basically just terminology, right? So Proto-Chinese, Archaic Chinese, Ancient Chinese, Middle Chinese, and Old Mandarin. And then this is Archaic Chinese, Ancient Chinese is Corrigan's terminology, which you still see, I think particularly among people writing in French, but we don't like it so much anymore, and we say Old Chinese and Middle Chinese. And then here's Norman. So Norman says Proto-Chinese. No, is it? It's not. So anyhow. I skipped that. Yeah. Okay, so now we actually talk about some sources. Yeah. So and here's the Chinese. Yeah. And actually, if you use any, automatic translation software, they always call it upper. Upper Old Chinese. Yeah. It's basically from the origin of the script until the Warring State, the kind of end of the Warring States period, something like that. And then Middle Chinese is really the Cheiyun and the Yunjing. And one thing I think is kind of funny about the way the discipline works, right? It's Old Chinese refers to this like extremely vague thing. It's like any Chinese over like 1,000-year period in a totally heterogeneous set of primary sources. And then Middle Chinese is like this one book from 602. And okay, that's the way we use these terms. And then I'll just flag that this is in phonology, right? And then the syntacticians do their own thing, and I don't know what it is, but it always confuses me. Yeah. Okay. So. Right, and then what this is sort of, we're just going to talk about now, because I'm not so interested in Mandarin, but I guess Jinqi covered it in the class, yeah, a little bit. When does Mandarin start? Well, let's say during this period when the barbarians were running all around in the north, yeah, and so here you have your barbarian dynasty. Yeah, you all know it was the Song, yeah, and then in the Yuan So in the Yuan is when, well, today's Beijing was the capital of the Jurchens, and then the Mongols made it their capital. And actually, I'll just say, in English, so in French and in German, everyone still calls it Peking, right? But in English, somehow this has become a thing where you don't say Peking, you say Beijing. And actually, I think now probably basically everyone says Beijing, but when I was sort of starting my studies, it was still a thing of like, should you say Peking or Beijing? Does it make you a communist if you say Beijing? And then I would like to tell a joke, and I say, actually, the correct pronunciation is Kanbalik. Yeah. But no one. I appreciate you guys laugh. Usually people would just stare at me when I said that. Yeah. But that's what it's called in Marco Polo. Yeah. Yeah, and so I think Kanbalik is the real name, and then Dadu, and then of course in in the 20s it was Beiping. Yeah, so a city that is so vast and important that it gets many names. And that was really this kind of Beijing, Nanjing, moving the capital around is when Mandarin really starts as a dialect, and then it's the sources for it are this Menggu Ziyun, which is basically the first time that Chinese is written systematically in an alphabet, right? Like we have some like Uyghur and Tibetan transcriptions of Chinese words, but this is the first time someone writes a dictionary of Chinese, writing each character in an alphabet. There's a great edition of it by W.S. Coblin, and it's clearly sort of Mandarin already. And then we start getting a rhyme book, especially I think for later, at least for opera and for sort of colloquial poetry, rhyme books that clearly have things like no Rushan anymore. So so then we know we're in Mandarin territory. And there's a nice book, I always forget the guy's name, even though I know him, from Amherst. Zhong Wei, Shen Zhongwei, yeah. Shen Zhongwei. He has a book that came out with Cambridge the same year as mine on Chinese, on the history of Chinese. And it's really good for this kind of late rhyme table stuff, yeah. It's not so good for other things, but I think it's really the place for like early the origins of early Mandarin, really useful. And then we have some Persian transcriptions. I think like Rashid al-Din, yeah, has some Chinese words from the Yuan period in his big history, and then Marco Polo. And so anyhow, by then we're definitely dealing with Mandarin. Yeah. I'll just skip this. Okay. And then actually I'm colorblind, so I don't really know what this map is trying to tell us, but presumably it's something about where Mandarin is spoken. Yeah. No? Or it's just a map of China?
Yeah, it's a problem with China.
Yeah. Okay. Well then you can fill in the parts where Mandarin is spoken right now.
Standardization debate.
Oh, okay, that's what it's about. Yeah. I mean, I actually think, I don't know, I don't think Cantonese ever really had a chance of becoming the Guoyu, right? Because, I don't know. I mean, there's actually a couple of good books about this, but it's like, they whenever they had meetings about it, everyone would fight until they were exhausted. And then somehow Mandarin ended up winning, yeah. Okay. So, am I going backwards now? No. No, okay, yeah, this is fine. Yeah, so then now we get to, let's talk about, zoom in on Middle Chinese, where we're on firm ground, and it's kind of Polyblank's idea to distinguish early Middle Chinese and late Middle Chinese based on the primary sources. So we have the Cheiyun, but it doesn't really exist anymore. And this is one of those things that's always confusing to, I don't know, outsiders or beginners. We say, oh, we base everything on the Cheiyun, it's so reliable, but we don't have it. So the earliest complete version of the Cheiyun is this Kangmye Cheiyun, which you'll see just like on the internet, you'll just see called Wang, like king, and then there's like Wang 1, Wang 2, Wang 3, which are different versions of it. But actually, I would say that it was only rediscovered in the palace in the 40s, I think. Anyone here? No? Yeah. So somebody was just, I don't know, looking through the palace and said, oh, look, it's the earliest copy of the Cheyun. And it was published in a terrible facsimile edition. But then there is circulating a quite nice color facsimile, but that I don't know it was ever formally published. But if you ask the person next to you, they will probably be able to send you a PDF of it. But I would say the discipline still really relies on the Guanyu. And I guess it's just too finicky, the differences between different Cheyun versions. But I think, you know, it would be good if we all moved back from the Guanyu to the Wang, yeah. And then the Guanyu was published under imperial sponsorship and has been available to everyone all the time. So that's kind of what Carl Green used and what most people use all the time. And actually, Ji Yue, who is here with you and will teach you Dongren either this morning or this afternoon, he wrote an excellent article just going through these different versions of the Cheyun and sort of how they're different and how the genre of kind of rhyme books developed over time. Okay. Yeah. And then this is it's funny, it's one of these things that I don't know about you, but I have certain things I do that I never thought of as my idea, right? So one that I remember really disliking when I first ran into it as an idea is to spell rhyme two different ways, yeah. But then I thought it was what everyone was doing, so then I started to do it very systematically. And now I look around and maybe I'm the only one who does it, yeah. But I think it's kind of useful. It's too bad that the words are pronounced the same way. I will say that this is the more etymological one. Rhyme comes from French, it doesn't come from Greek, right? So, I think it's useful to say, like if we're talking about rhyme in linguistics, we use this one, and if we're talking about rhyme in poetry, we use this one. Although I think in the next slide, Yunhan is going to use them in a slightly different way. No, he doesn't. Okay, so this is a picture of the Cheyun from Dunhuang, and this is, you know, I mean, it's not like, you know, I'm not going to guarantee you that this is the one that the author, Mr. Hu, actually wrote, yeah, but it's from the first version, yeah. And there are a few little scraps in London and in Paris, and that's one of them. But then here's the Guanyu, yeah. Okay, so now we will talk about the structure of these books. So yeah, there's a thing called a nu, which is a circle, and you sometimes have it translated as button, because I think would you call this a new code? New code, okay, yeah. So in the book there is a little circle, and you know, let's just go back actually and see. You can see like there and there, yeah. So that's the end of a homophone group. And a homophone group is called a Xiaoyun. So this is characters that should be homophones, yeah. And then each homophone group is headed with a kind of main word. And then this is going to be too small for you to see, but a lot of you know this. So if someone, you know, again, you can just talk to your neighbor. But you see there's a large character, and that's the kind of head word of that homophone group. And then after it comes the fanche and then a number. So it says like cat, and then it says, you know, C-A-T, cat. There are 15 words, cat. First one, meow meow. Second one, a abbreviation for category. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and then we're going sort of bottom up. Actually, I usually present it sort of top down. But so you have these dots that separate homophones, and then there's one fanche, one pronunciation given for each homophone group. And then you gather together the homophone groups into a rhyme, and that's a rhyme category, yeah? And then the whole, and then you collect the rhymes into tones, and then those are the actual volumes of the book. So the book has 5 volumes because there are 4 tones, and one of them had too many characters in it, so they split it across 2 volumes. And that was the Ping Chang, I think, right? Yeah. Okay, so that was introduction to the Cheiyun, and now we look at the Yunjing a little bit. So here is a page from the Yunjing, and it's, I think, is it 1008, something like that, right? So one is from, so the Cheiyun is from 602, and the Yunjing is from 1008, yeah. So there's a good span of time between them, and this is where the pulley blank calls the one early Middle Chinese and the other one late Middle Chinese, and this is how how it looks like, the Yunjing, and what you have here are initial categories of manner across the top. So like you know, it will say like here it says velars, voiceless, voiceless, aspirated, yeah. And then these are rhyme categories, yeah.
Those are the tones.
Pardon?
Those are the tones.
Yeah, those are
Those are the 3 big ones are the tones.
Yeah,
And why don't they say Ping and Shang and
Oh, it's like a character with the tone.
with that tone? Okay, I see. Fine. Yeah. Oh, the whole page is a category, is a rhyme category, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole.
Yeah.
thing is around.
Yeah, the whole page is a rhyme category, and then okay, and then we have these 4 rows, and this is a whole hornet's nest. Like, what are these 4 rows? But then, what I always say to my students is, okay, and this terminology comes from I think Mr. O, but it might have been Shen Reiqing in the Brill Encyclopedia. When we talk about these rows, we will call them ranks. Okay. And when I say rank 1, I mean, like, I'm looking at a page of the Yunjing, I mean the first row out of the 4. It really is about the mise en page of a particular book, right? And then we know where we are. So that's what rank 1, 2, 3, 4 means. And then how it is to be interpreted linguistically is a whole other thing. But I think that's, and then well, we'll get to there, but in Chinese, they use one term, tang. But I think in English, it's useful to distinguish rank when we're talking about the actual, how does the page formatting of the Yunjing look? And when we're talking about more theoretical, abstract linguistic things, especially about the language of the Cheiyun, then we should say division, yeah? And I will say that unhealthily, this Shang Zhongwei, in his book, he uses those 2 words in exactly the opposite way. So that is something to watch out for. Yeah.
so grade is indifferent. Grade 1, grade 2, grade is indifferent with this.
Yeah, so the thing is, so basically, so those of you who don't, like all 3 of you who don't know what we're talking about yet, just ignore what I'm about to say.
Okay.
But you have things like, you know, Chongyu Division 4 and things like that, right? And you have like, you know, you sort of most of the time, like rank 1 is Division 1.
Yeah.
But when you get to rank 3 and 4, the relationship between the ranks and the divisions gets a little messy.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's really helpful to actually be able to say, like, this character is in Division 3 and rank 4, right? So that's why I like this terminology. Whereas I don't even know, like in Chinese, how do you say this character is in Division 3 but rank 4? You have to use some kind of specific term that you've already made up for those kind of characters, right? Anyhow, right. Oh yeah, and then I will just point out, since we're talking about the page formatting, yeah. Since we're talking about the page formatting of the Yunjing, here on the right, it says that this is the
The introvert.
actually, this is a terrible example. Let's just cover it up and say, now it says no medial W. Now it says there is a medial W. I actually recently read about this, someone, I don't remember where, someone wrote about this category. It was Zuchi Chun, and it's not published yet, but who's in Edinburgh, who's written about this Kai He category. But anyhow, and then this first thing, this nay, and there's also a y, of course. This is one of these things, when I read about it, I just fall asleep. Yeah, like it doesn't seem very important. So if someone has really strong feelings about this nai or this way, then you can tell me, how I should teach it the next time I teach its class. But it doesn't come up in Old Chinese at all. Yeah. Okay, so now just sort of terminology. We have initials, finals, and tone. Yeah. So there are 36 initials in. I mean, it even gets tricky. I guess the 36 initials. So the first place they're mentioned, but it's not 36, is in this preface to the Che-Yun by this Buddhist monk, and it's in Dunhuang. Yeah. But it's in the Jinqi. No, it's not in the. Sorry, it's in the other one, the 7. Yeah, there's a thing that looks just like the Jinqi, published in the same year. They use different terminology, and it uses this 36 initials, and I can always forget its name. But and then the finals. So basically, let's say actually that the book itself, let's say the Che-Yun has some 200, if you like, rhyme categories, and different editions have slightly different categories depending on different sort of decisions of different editors. And then later, people would gather them into this sh, which is like nuclear vowel. Yeah. So in the Che-Yun itself, something like ot and something like I don't know, all are not identified in any way. Yeah. And actually, I don't really know, like methodologically, how we have identified them. I guess it's mostly based on dialects, yeah, because it's not going to rhyme, right? Anyhow, I won't. These are lots of terms, and we're not going to go through them all now. Yeah, and then there are 4 tones, and later there's this. Let's say many living Chinese dialects have gone through a tonal split, depending on whether the initial was voiced or voiceless, and that makes this so-called yin and yang distinction in the tones. So this is why in Cantonese you have
9 tones.
9 tones, yeah, but you should have 8, right?
There's one more based on length of the check nucleus.
So you have 2 lengths of the Czech nucleus?
Yeah, so the check nucleus can theoretically be both either long or short, and then the tone is, but one of the Czech tones is split in Cantonese based on this. And then technically some varieties split both Czech tones, so you have 4 Czech tones, the Cantonese only has 3.
And what is the conditioning environment for the other split in the Czech tones?
It's also the same, it's just that it's a split in, it's just the voicing split, and on top of that you have another length split of the Czech tone.
That's caused by what? Historically, yeah.
It's neither analyze length or ATR, but yeah.
No, but I mean the conditioning
perhaps,
environment.
but perhaps that's contact by Kradai.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. But well, anyhow, we can talk about it later. It's not directly related to this, but I would be curious. What index is that in Middle Chinese or nothing? Maybe, yeah. Okay. Yes, and then here are some helpful websites. So yeah, so I don't know, you did. These are helpful websites, and like I know what they all do, but it would take a long time to explain. So just visit these 4 websites if you don't know them already. Yeah. well, let's say as resources for the primary, let's say primary and secondary sources for translating. So like Suzuki has let's say all of the fragments of the Cheyu are up there with the pictures, and he also has rhyme annotations from all of Chinese history and all sorts of exciting things. Anyhow, these are some helpful websites. And what does it say? Oh yes, yeah. Don't don't like. I was gonna say don't trust, but you should trust the websites, but you should not cite them in papers, right? It's bad style. It's always good to pretend that you have gone back to the primary sources yourself. Okay, and then here are some more references. Yeah, and I so far I haven't made like a Google Drive or something, and I don't know quite how to handle this. We can decide, but like it sort of once you start sharing books, you never know where to stop, right? So, but actually, I'll say most of them are quite readily available on dark corners of the internet. So, so if you know how to find those sorts of things, then you're all sorted. But if you don't, then you can ask one of your classmates or me. I also know how to find things in dark corners of the internet. Okay, and then here are some more references. These were, yeah, and then that's the end of those two lessons, or like from our, yeah, and then there's only 5 minutes left to go, which is maybe enough time for the next person to set up and for me to take some questions, whether from the audience or from the internet.